This is Jackie.
Hey, Jackie.
Hi, how are you?
Good, how are you?
Good.
I saw your mask and I thought you had like a chin support. And I was like, oh no, what happened?
Oh my God, that's so funny.
It was like a dental incident or something. I have to get used to people wearing them on their chin.
I bought one. I realized over the weekend that like we're going to be doing this for a while, right? With
Yep.
masks. So I went on Amazon and I bought like 5 different like styles of masks. So like yesterday I had like this like scarf thing that like you just do
Uh-huh.
this. And now I have this one and like just trying them all out to see like what's going to
Yeah.
like be best for my fashion statement moving forward in life.
Yep. I know. I've got my list of local makers that I'm getting them from, and they're all a little different. I've got like the earband or the one behind the head and
Yeah, right.
different like fabric weights and layers. Like I have one that's a Milwaukee flag, but it's basically like a piece of a t-shirt and it feels so thin. And I'm like, I don't know if this is doing anything. So
Right, right.
I
And then I
don't
had
know
my
if I,
mother-in-law like make a bunch of them like right when everything happened and she was like donating them, but hers were
nice.
like 3 ply and like you couldn't breathe through them. It was
Mm-hmm.
insane. So it was like, look,
Mm-hmm.
I can't wear your stuff. Like I just can't. Can't.
Yeah.
You're trying to kill me.
Yeah. I've got a few of those that are pretty thick that were
Yeah.
fine when it was cold out. Now,
Right.
like,
I
my
agree.
face is sweating. This is a weird new thing.
Totally.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Yeah. Though I have to say I'm getting used to it. I went to the ear doctor the other day and they had to like look in my throat and they made me take off my mask and I felt indecent. I was like, oh, they're naked. Like, are they are they gonna close the door? My mask is off. Like, what's going on?
That's hilarious.
Yeah, it's weird how you like adapt to that kind of stuff.
I know, unless
So,
you're wearing that super, super thick one and you're like, I'm just dying and I can't talk to
yeah,
you anymore. Like I'm
right.
hyperventilating.
Yeah, let's all stand in an attic and talk about this house with our masks on. That was me this last
Till
weekend.
that
I was like
happens.
getting antsy. I'm like, cool, let's go downstairs. And it was like a ladder and somebody was standing on it, blocking it. And I'm like, great, I'm ready to go downstairs, guys. Let's talk
Yeah,
where it's not 90 degrees. Getting
that's great.
claustrophobic. Yeah. Well, adjusting. We're all adjusting.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, look at all these lovely faces. Hi, guys. Katie,
Hi,
Jessica,
Amanda.
Laura. Hi.
Hello.
Jackie, Spilius, Renita. How's everybody doing?
Good.
My dog is a sass today, so I may have to stop and tell her to be quiet. Choopy. Ooh, I'm gonna go grab her real quick. Girl, I got a class to teach. What are you doing? Oh, attention Burks. Attention Burks. Hi. Well, I think we'll get started. I'm
Jeez.
sure people will jump on.
Okay.
This is Chupacabra, my assistant. She's kind of a punk today. There's lots of noises happening around us and the windows are open, so she's just not liking it. But maybe she wants to learn about things in the launch program. Maybe, yeah. So thanks for coming, everybody. I have been kind of looking over some notes I've had from launches since these started, and taking notes from conversations from people who have done accountability calls with me. Also checking in with other coaches in the launch program. So a couple things I wanted to note just as reminders. When it comes to getting assistance on anything you're working on, just a reminder, the helpline is there. It's Andy Stillman and Stephanie Minnick. In general, the best thing to do is to give them as much of a heads up as you can. So if you know you're going to be writing an offer at the end of today or sometime tomorrow morning, give them a heads up and just say, hey, I'm going to be doing this. Could we set a time to talk about this? Ideally, you are doing that well in advance of writing an offer for an actual client. So I highly, highly recommend, if you haven't done it yet, schedule a time with them through the helpline to sit down and go over the offer to purchase and how you set that up. You may think you know what needs to go into that, but if you haven't actually gone through the process of pulling documents from MLS, putting everything into zip forms, getting signatures through zip forms or DocuSign, sending PDFs to the listing agent. If you haven't done that whole process while going over the documents, you better be practicing, because it will take you forever if you don't do it first before you have to do it for real. And I'm witnessing this more and more. I was a listing agent on the side of one of these, and like, timing right now, right, in this market is make or break. You could completely miss out for your client on even getting a chance at getting an accepted offer if you can't get the documents in time. So practicing ahead of time so you can do that efficiently, super important. So plan ahead, schedule a time with the helpline to review an offer and what you need to do that. Also, Brad and Lindsay in the tech department are putting together some more videos about how to do the command connects to DocuSign, connects to zip forms thing. So you'll have some of those for reference soon. Mandy's also working on a playlist specific to launch of videos that are best references. I talked to somebody the other day who did something really smart. She scheduled a time with the helpline to review an offer, but before she went, she watched the 2 videos I did on filling out an offer. She watched the video that Kimmy did about compliance with offers. And she watched the video I did, I think it was last week, about what you need to put together as far as information to get an offer written. So using those resources, I know it's kind of overwhelming how much is in there now in our YouTube channel, but there's good stuff in there, and you can stop it, rewind it, watch it again and again. It's the perfect way to set yourself up for success. So I highly recommend that. Also, we were talking about, things that are working and not working. I have very few people calling me about accountability or texting me to set up a call. That is a huge, huge opportunity to have 15 to 20 minutes one-on-one with me to talk about your goals, your progress, and how you're doing with your top 5. There's going to be some more rolling out with that soon. That's going to be more, there's going to be some stricter guidelines as to what you must accomplish in order to take on a client yourself. So if you have not been doing these things to get on track, now is the time, and there'll be more rolling out about that soon. So that's my little commercial about launch. So based on the conversations I had with the other launch coaches, one of the things that I kept coming back to is, launch is, I'm the accountability coach. And how does that translate into things that are going to best serve you and your business and best serve your clients? And it's not just about your goal setting, though that's important. And it's not just about your time management, though that is crazy important, and your mindset, but also it's about how you are accountable to the people you're working with. And today we're going to talk about how you're accountable to your clients and your customers. Charlie, how many people were in the meeting this morning? Did you see what Charlie said about how many people are working with a referral agent or a repeat agent when it comes to listing their home? How many people use an agent when they're buying a home and that's like their first introduction to things? Repeat and referral business is huge. Most of my business is repeat and referral clients. It's people I've built relationships with. And not only do I have a good relationship with them, keep in touch with them, but also I am highly accountable to them during their transaction so that it's a pleasant experience, right? If you like somebody, but working with them is painful, whether it's, you know, an interaction with a server at a restaurant or your financial advisor, whoever it is, you can be like, I like this person, but this is a huge investment and a major process, and they just can't get it together, or I feel like they're not serving me well. That's it. They're not going to refer you to anybody. They might take you to a party or introduce you to a friend, but they're not going to push your, push referrals your way or tell people you're a great real estate agent. They're just going to say you're a nice person. So accountability to your clients is huge, and it is considered prospecting. I have to remind myself of this. I spend a ton of time serving my clients, and there are moments when I get so caught up in that and I'm like, oh man, I should be prospecting more. I should be calling 40 people a day, all that stuff. But ultimately, I need to do some prospecting outside of working in my business daily. But the way I serve my clients is prospecting, because if I serve them well, they will refer people to me. They will want to work with me again. And that's so important. It's not just a 30 to 60 days relationship over, check it off the list, I get my money, we move on. If you want to build a business and you want to be successful, one of the ways I've dramatically increased my business year over year is because of all that repeat and referral business. And when you're early new, that's your time to grow your roots, right? Like as many people as you can help in a quality way, regardless of the price of their home, regardless of where it is. Those experiences are important because that's how you're going to grow. Your roots will grow into your tree, will grow into your branches. And the bigger your roots are and the stronger they are, the stronger your business is going to grow. Make sense? I'm seeing nods. Okay, cool. Man, I can't wait till we
Yes,
do this
I
in
like that
person
better.
again. Good. All right. Awesome.
It's better than sitting down and making 40 calls a day.
Yeah.
I mean, you
and,
should do that too, but.
Yeah, for some people that works. There's other ways of prospecting, but what I'm coming across is people are feeling really frustrated because the opportunities to meet with people face to face are limited, right? There's only so many open houses happening right now. There's only so many parties or happenstance interactions. So finding ways to pour into the people you are working with now can be very beneficial later on. And even if it's somebody who you know is not going to buy right now, how can you best serve them? How can you give them the best experience possible? And that might mean not taking them out on 40 showings. It might mean taking the time to talk more about what they're really looking for, figure out what their real goals and needs are, and then find out ways to take care of them in the best way possible. If you only have 1 or 2 clients, do what you can to make that an amazing experience. And along the way, you can mention like, hey, if you know anybody else who's looking or thinking about buying or selling, I'd love to help them too. And if they appreciate the experience they're having with you, they're going to be way more likely to spread the word. So keep that in mind, that it is to some extent a form of prospecting, in my opinion. So things you can do to be accountable to your clients. The number one most important thing that continuously comes up on surveys is that people, especially selling their homes, feel like their agent does not communicate with them enough. I'll say that again. People selling their homes, the majority of them feel like their agent is not communicating with them enough. If they have a complaint about their agent, it's communication. And it makes me think of, at some point I took a speech class in high school, and I remember my speech teacher saying, you need to enunciate and speak slowly to the point where it feels silly. And that is how people will best understand you, and that will make for the best presentation. And I translate that to how I communicate with my clients. be in touch with them to the point where it feels silly. Because if you are over communicating, they will tell you this is too much. If you are checking in with them less than once a week, that's a major problem. You should at least be checking in once a week, but very likely it should be more like 2 or 3 times. And it doesn't have to be a big compiled report in an email. It doesn't even necessarily have to be news. It's just checking in. This is a big deal, right? How many people have purchased a home at some point? And when you're going through that process, do you remember what that felt like? It's like one day you're excited and the next day you're terrified, and then you're questioning your choice, and then you're wondering what's happening next, and then you think of every worst case scenario that could possibly happen, right? It's a roller coaster of emotions, and there's no schedule to that. You know, I had my check-in with my agent on Monday, and now it's Thursday and I'm spiraling. Your agent doesn't know that. So as an agent, you've got to have a regular check-in, whether you schedule that in your block schedule and you say every Monday I'm checking in. And then on either Wednesday, Thursday, or Friday, I'll do another check back depending on activity, due dates, stuff like that. Have that scheduled. Set the expectation with your client that you're going to be doing that so they know that they can expect you to call. The worst thing that can happen to you as an agent is that your client calls you and asks for an update. That is bad. That should never happen. Now, if you have a high maintenance person and you just talked to them this morning and they're freaking out and something came up and they call you later and they're like, what's the update? That's a different story. But most people are not going to be that way. And so if they're reaching out to you, they've gotten to the point where they're so worried, they're so worked up, they're so concerned, they feel lost and they feel abandoned, and now they're bugging you. That should never be. That should never be. So make sure that you're setting the expectation you're going to be in touch with them, and make sure that you are setting a time aside in your block schedule to make sure that actually happens. And sometimes, especially after you get past appraisal and loan commitment, there's not a whole lot to do, right? There's not much else to talk about. Check in anyway. How are you feeling? How's packing going? Do you need boxes? Can I connect you to any moving resources? You know, where are you at? Checking in and getting those, you know, updates on their emotions is really important for you to understand what position they're in. It may also be a really important part of your negotiations if you're still working through things and you know you think everything's cool and the seller or the buyer's agent asks for something of your sellers and you think like, I'm sure there'll be no problem, and then you call the seller and they're like, oh no way, they are asking for way too much, absolutely not, and you are totally blindsided and also kind of look like you don't know what you're doing because you didn't talk to your client first. You assumed way off target of how they would respond. So those regular check-ins, that regular communication, that paying attention to how they are feeling, acting, replying. This is a relationship, right? This is about people. So it's not just the transactional, here's what we're doing, here's the due date, do this, do that, check in on this, sign this document. You're just asking. You're draining that bank account, getting them to do all these things for the transaction and not pouring back into them. And they're in a very vulnerable state, right? Especially right now. Is anybody noticing, if you're working with people right now, how much more sensitive they are? Or maybe you are. It's an up and down roller coaster of emotions just living life right now because of how different things are and how hard the transition and the adjustment has been. There's a lot of things going on out there that are worrisome. So it's even more important to really be a solid, consistent presence and the one driving the ship so they can relax a little bit. So those check-ins are really, really key, and that kind of communication is really important. So however you set that up, you could set up, you know, every this day I send an email that says, you know, this is the next thing that's due and here's what it means. And then I'll do a follow-up phone call tomorrow and we'll talk about it. However you want to do that, make sure you are not forgetting that. It's very easy to get caught up in the details of the offer, right? The details of due dates and deadlines and documents and connecting with the other agent and making sure title has what they need. And it's a lot of runaround. Don't forget, you are working for a person who is going through a big life change. And so that can send them in all kinds of directions. And just do what you can to be there consistently communicating and set the expectations that you will be there to help them relax a little bit and build that trust. That's going to make all the difference in the world for the whole transaction, for you, especially for them. And down the line, they're going to remember that. Wow, this was so smooth and easy. It was really lovely. You know, we built a nice relationship, and I never once felt like I was by myself. I really had a true guide and advocate in this. That's what you want people to say about their experience working with you. And that's how you're going to get repeat and referral business from those clients. And honestly, great relationships. And that for me has been a tremendous benefit of working in this business. So I highly recommend doing that. As far as due dates and deadlines go, that's a big one, right? If you miss a deadline on loan commitment, what happens? What could happen?
The deal falls apart.
The deal could fall apart. It's the only time the seller can really walk. If you don't get that loan commitment in time, you could think everything's cool. You've been cruising along for a little while. We're getting closer to closing. This is exciting. Oh crap, I forgot the loan commitment. Or, oh no, the lender's behind schedule and I didn't check in with them and now it's due today and now it might not come until tomorrow or the next day. The underwriter's overwhelmed, the appraisal's late. Suddenly you're in trouble. Don't put yourself or your clients into that position of, oh no. That panic mode is terrible for everybody. It's horribly stressful. It's the worrying for 24 hours that your whole new home that you're excited about, that you've been thinking about for 30 plus days is going to disappear. So make sure you're really on top of those dates and deadlines. Something we do in our team, my assistant and I, she puts together an important dates list. This is something I did when I was a solo agent until our number of transactions increased so much that it was too much for me to handle myself. But we send out a sheet that has all the steps of the process, all the due dates and deadlines that go with that. So it's things like earnest money, inspection, testing, appraisal, earnest money, inspection, testing, appraisal, loan commitment, closing disclosure or seller's settlement statement from the title company, title commitment, which doesn't really have a due date, but like where it falls in the process. This is also a great checklist for you to work off of so that when you're checking in about your clients that are under contract, where are we with these things? I also highly recommend, if you don't already use a calendar on your phone, put all those dates and deadlines into your phone. And if you're using Google Calendar, it's very easy to just send those to your client as well. And boy, does that look like you're on top of things. So now they have it in their calendar for sure, if they're using a Google Calendar. You have it in your calendar for sure. They have a page that explains all of it, which they'll look at, but it's super likely they're gonna forget about or not look at for a while. But it's there, so you can refer them back to it. And when you're doing your preview for the next week, you're planning for the next week, look ahead to all those dates and deadlines. Okay, so I know that the loan commitment is due on Thursday. So on Monday, I'm checking in with the lender to find out where we are with that. And I'm checking in with my client to say, just a reminder, loan commitment's due on Thursday. If your lender sends that to you, make sure you forward it to me, please. So I have time to get your signature on that before I send it to the listing agent. And you're checking in with the listing agent. Hey, I know the loan commitment's due on Thursday, but I'm in touch with the lender today. I hope to have an update for you. That proactive, non-panic mode approach will make everything smoother and better for everybody. So being accountable to your client also means being on top of your fiduciary responsibilities, those due dates and deadlines, making sure that paperwork is happening when it should, and not waiting until the last minute or going into panic mode because you think it's this week, but you're not sure. Oh, where is that in the offer? I should probably find that out. Don't do that. Don't do that. You'll make you'll make your business a mess, you'll make your day-to-day a mess, and you'll make your customers and clients experience a mess, and they are way less likely to refer you if you don't look like you know the basics of what you should be doing in your job. And if you're unsure of what those important responsibilities are, by our agency agreement, listing contract spells out exactly what you should be doing. So that's a big one, due dates and deadlines. You know, in general, being mindful of how they're feeling. I saw somebody note something about it's very much that you're like a therapist. There is some of that, and sometimes that means just listening. So I try to be conscious of the fact that if I have most of my communication with somebody has been very like, here's a document, sign it, this is what it's about, here's the next steps. It's very factual, and we haven't had an interaction in a while, that I try to reach out and just say, hey, I just want to check in and see how you're feeling. You know, how are you feeling about things? What are you working on? Have you made plans for moving? Are you picking paint colors? Are you excited? Are you nervous? How can I help you feel at ease? I'm a wealth of resources beyond this transaction, and you're setting those expectations within the transaction that if they need other things, you're there for them. You know, yay, we got through all of our contingencies. Awesome. Here's a text. Hey, looks great. Got the loan commitment. We're good to go. Let's get the closing scheduled. You know, all the details and very specific things to get that all set up. And then maybe a day or two later or later that night, it's, hey, are you guys celebrating yet? Are you wanting to, you know, find a way to celebrate when you move in? There's this great new place that started doing takeout that I just had to tell you about. Or, you know, do you need resources for painters? Or are you looking for where to donate things as you're clearing out your closets and packing? How's all that going? And then, you know, they tell you all the stuff about how there's way more in the house than they ever thought they had, and how all the kitchen cabinets take up 45 boxes, and isn't that crazy? And just listen. Man, oh, I know. It's a lot. It's, you know, kudos to you. You're doing this with 3 kids and homeschool and all this stuff's going on, but I'm here for you. Sometimes they just need to vent a little bit, and you totally understand what's happening, and you might be able to provide a resource if they bring up any concerns. So really paying attention to their feelings, their concerns, their stressors, what they have to do to understand what else is on their plate. You know, how are things working out with work? Are you still working from home? If you need to schedule a final walkthrough, understanding kind of the behind the scenes on that too can be helpful. Making sure that they have a time they can set up for closing in advance so it doesn't mess up their work schedule or their, you know, family schedule. So just being aware of them as a whole person. I think it's very easy to overlook that when you're in the thick of a transaction, when you're really into the details of an offer, especially when you're new, there's so much that you don't want to mess up. But ultimately, you have to remember, these are people on both sides. And so having an understanding, having some empathy, making sure they know you're there for them is really important. And it sounds corny, but I'm telling you, like 90% of my business this year has been repeat and referral, and I'm going to have my best year ever. Like, this works from a business standpoint, and also it's just very fulfilling, you know, to build those relationships with people, to have people that are forever grateful for your help in their big step in their life. That's a huge deal. It's one of the reasons I do this. So just make sure that you're really paying attention to those things, and you're remembering these are people. However you approach that, you don't, you know, I have a teaching background, and I used to run fine dining restaurants. So I'm very much built around relationship building and listening and talking and educating and serving, anticipating needs. But everybody has a slightly different approach, and you'll find that you'll attract people that kind of jive with you in how they operate, and how, you know, whether they're very emotional or more you know, transactional about things. But everybody's got feelings, so you got to kind of, you have to have a soft side of the business somewhere. And if that's not your thing, maybe that's what your assistant does. Maybe your assistant's the emotional check-in. Maybe you get somebody on board who can do that part-time for you, and that's all they do. Once a week, call all your people, see how they're feeling, report back to you. So there are lots of creative ways to get help on these things too. You don't have to have a 40-hour-a-week person. My assistant, Liz, is amazing. She's wonderful. She started out 5 hours a week for me on an hourly basis as an independent contractor. And then it was 10. And then it was 15. We changed it every year. And now she's 40 hours a week. But it took us a while to build up to that point. And, you know, when you don't have a whole ton of commission coming in, being responsible for somebody's salary is terrifying. This is the first year I have her full time, and I was scared as heck at the beginning, but now we are killing it, and I can't tell you how valuable it is to have her. But if you feel like these sorts of things are not your jam, then maybe you find somebody who can make that happen. You know, just on a part-time basis, somebody who's checking in for you, helping you out. Maybe it's, you know, someone you've worked with in the past. Maybe it's a friend of somebody who's looking for a job. You know, a lot of people are out of work right now who are in service industry. And if you have never worked in service industry, you could use a person in service industry. They are excellent at reading people. It's where I got that skill from. Understanding just from people's body language through a Zoom, their vocal tone, how they're approaching things, the way they make decisions, all that stuff comes into understanding how to best negotiate for them, negotiate with them at times, and how to best serve them too. So if you are not finding that's your thing, you may see some benefit to bringing somebody on who does. So there's lots of creative ways to build your business and best serve your clients. If that's, you know, if you feel like, gosh, they want me to be, you know, 10 different people and wear 40 different hats, and this is being an entrepreneur, people. But if you've gotten to the point where you're doing enough business that you feel like, man, I want to take it to the next level, or I just feel like I need that missing piece, then you could potentially use an assistant for that. So I'm just gonna put people on mute here. Pardon me. It doesn't seem to be working. All right, y'all, if you're not on mute, put yourself on mute unless you have something to share. I've got 2 people who are making noises. Okay, so my question to you is, does anybody have an example of something they've done that they feel like is an important piece of that being accountable to your clients? Anything you've tried, or maybe even if you're willing to share something where you felt a failure. I can tell you, I've had like 3 in the last 2 weeks that were pretty bad, that we got back on track, but nobody's perfect. So does anybody have anything that they have as an example? It can be something small too. Beth.
I'll say something I messed up on. Sure, it's a learning opportunity.
Thank you, Beth.
So I have a new listing, and I'm working with husband and wife, and you know, going through the zip forms and stuff like that. And I accidentally, you know, when you send the forms over, you have to pick DocuSign or Zip Logic or whatever. And I really wanted to do DocuSign, but I sent Zip Logic instead, and it just kind of didn't work as smoothly. And so I had to like resend everything. You know, and I just, I worry that it's going to make me look unprofessional and all that kind of stuff. But, you know, I blamed it on a technology whiff. Be like, oh, technology, sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm waiting to get, supposedly the wife has finally figured out how to get in there and sign. So I don't believe it until I see it. Mm-hmm. But then I decided I hired a transaction coordinator, because that's my stress point, and I'm not as comfortable with it. And mm-hmm. I just want to like not have that on my table right now.
Yeah. And do you feel like, Beth, with having that person who can do those things behind the scenes, you're freer to be in contact and more open to what's going on with your clients?
Yes. Yeah. Because I just feel like there's so much else on the front end of things that I need to do, even though I want to know how to do all that other stuff. It's like, I'm not practicing. I am doing it live right now. And this matters. And this is this is a property, it's a duplex that's being sold. And, this seller, he just wants the best deal and he wants to move forward. He doesn't want all this back and forth. He's like, a straight shooter, and, I need to match that personality. So I just need to, have everything streamlined. And even though behind the scenes and in my head, I might be freaking out, I can't let them see that. So it's a little bit of a smoke and mirrors thing. I feel sometimes.
Yeah. Well, and I think you made a couple of good points there, Beth. You mentioned, the technology thing came up, but then you were in touch with them to say, oh my gosh, it was a technology thing. I have definitely seen people who will send documents and just send them and like, okay, that's done. But following up with them to say like, oh, it looks like this didn't work, or, let me see what I can do to fix this. Just helping them understand what you are doing that they can't see can be all it takes sometimes to say like, I'm working for you, I'm trying to make this happen, instead of just like sending something out and having them get frustrated about it, right? So being in touch with them directly, that was a great call. Also, you said he's a straight shooter, so you're doing a good job of reading this person, figuring out how you need to anticipate their needs and probably how they would best feel through a transaction. Clean, easy, simple, right? So you're probably not going to have an hour-long therapy session with this guy, but he does want to know that you're doing things, that it's done properly. Once he finally signs and it's good, he's going to want to report back from you to say, everything looks good, here's what I'm doing next. So you already know that's his style. And maybe her style isn't that way, but it's good to understand what both of them need. I, as a side note, anytime you're working with two people as a couple, or like siblings or something like that are selling a property, it's really important to figure out a way to communicate with both of them. You're going to have somebody who wants to be the communicator or the contact. And even if that means the other person doesn't respond, some kind of at least weekly check-in where you've got both of them on it, maybe it's an email, maybe it's a text, is highly recommended. I have a couple right now I'm working with where I thought everything was so cool. I thought these were like my favorite clients ever. They were so sweet and easygoing, and they loved me. And then I went over there for an inspection check-in before the inspection, and she came blowing out of the house and basically tore me to shreds. You've forgotten about us. You've left us high and dry. We never hear from you. We have to reach out to you. This is bad. This is bad. Oh, this is terrible. Now, a lot of that is because I was communicating with him, who was saying everything was cool, and then he wasn't sharing anything with her, or selectively was. So she was out of the loop, feeling left alone, spinning out of control, because I had no communication with her. It was mostly with him. So, whatever multiple people you're working with in whatever scenario, it's really important that you figure out a way to be including that other person. And even if they don't read that email or respond to that text message, you at least have something to say. I sent you a message on this day and this day and this day and this day about all these things. And I told you I was going to do that. Hey, I'm going to email both of you every week on Tuesday, so that there's no question of whether you're doing your job or not. Also, if you ever get into trouble, that's your back. You can say, I have proof that I have been doing my job. But yeah, that's a good point. Anybody else have an example of something where they're being accountable to their clients?
I guess with my listing, I like to just, anytime there's a showing, and then there's the feedback, I like to send them all the feedback like typed out so that they see, how they felt about it. So I try.
Are you doing that, Jaci, with like a phone call to the agent for feedback?
No,
or are you working off the showing time?
I'm just doing like the showing time when they leave feedback after they show it. I just type that out for them.
There is a way where you can put your client's email address into showing time. And when those reports publish to you, you can set it up so it either automatically publishes to them, which I don't recommend.
Yeah, that's why I didn't. I think I saw that and I didn't want to do that.
You can also set it up so that you receive it and then you can choose to publish it to them.
Okay.
If you're using the app, it's really easy to do it through there. You'll get an alert, or you can go in and see my listings under feedback, and you can pull up the feedback, and there's an option to publish to your client.
Okay.
Then you don't have to type them up. But that's a great idea. And people, right, if you're selling your home and somebody's showing it, aren't you dying to know how it went?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So if you've got a seller that you're working with, making sure that you're following up on that feedback and set the expectations. I usually say there's a good chance we might not get feedback until the next day, because there's a chance this agent is showing 10 properties on one day and the buyer needs to think about it and all that stuff. So if they're thinking of writing an offer, we'll most likely hear day of. But if they are just giving us some helpful feedback or maybe thinking about it, it might not be till the next day. And so as soon as I've got that feedback, I'm sending it back to them. And if I don't get feedback by the next day, best practice, call the agent. I can say from experience, I'm not always the best at filling out those feedback forms. If I've got 15 showings on a Saturday, it takes me a little while to get back to those if they weren't, I want to write an offer. So it's good to follow up and just call those agents. Also, great tip, just fill out the feedback form right after the showing. I'm trying to get into that habit. You could even fill it out with your client, with your buyer. Use that part of your like, yeah, what do you think of the place? Okay, 1 to 5. Let's just get this out of the way. Good practice. I should get into that. Anybody else? Thanks, Jackie.
Yeah.
So everybody else is not serving their clients well.
I have another family I'm working with on the buy side.
Okay.
It's a husband and wife, 3 kids, and now the mother of his wife and her mother's boyfriend, they all want to buy a property together, either a side-by-side or a home that has a in-law suite situation. It's the husband that's, has the VA loan, he's the one qualifying and all that kind of stuff. And it's been very challenging because now, we have a lot of people to try to please in this living situation, and it has evolved and changed. And I think he's been expressing, reading between the lines, some frustration. And so I've had to been like, you guys need to powwow and get your needs, wants, non-negotiables, this and that together, because, and they're out looking way outside this like area. So I drove to Beaver Dam to do a couple showings, which I'm happy to do, but I don't want to continue doing that and wasting all my time. So, yeah, that's been kind of, I'm like in this process of being almost like a therapist and a mediator.
Mm-hmm. Did you do a buyer consultation with them?
Well, this kind of evolved organically. The wife is someone I used to work with, and she commented on a post I made about doing an open house for another agent and just kind of asked me about it, and it ended up not being the right property for them. But one thing led to another, and she's like, oh, we want you to help us because we trust you. So, and so we just kind of had conversations like that, like unofficially. So I knew what they were looking for, but even within this process, now they're finding out from mom that, she's kind of thinking of some different things. And
I highly recommend you pump the brakes on the showings and say, you know what, I feel like we have different ideas of what we're looking for to best serve you and to be respectful of your time, as well as being considerate of the fact that we're having sellers accommodate showings and COVID's happening still. This would be a great time for us to just regroup, and let's have a regroup meeting and treat it like a buyer consultation. Have them talk about what they're looking for in advance, ask that everybody possible be part of that conversation, which may be even easier with like a Zoom call. So that you're all on the same page, and say, here's what we're going to talk about. Keep it very structured so people don't take over the conversation. And say, we're going to mainly talk about what you're looking for, and everyone's going to get a chance to speak. You could send them an itinerary ahead of time if you want. It's going to be this person, then this person, then this person. these are the things we're going to talk about, and then setting the expectations of what the at least the basic outline of the process will be, so that everybody's on the same page. Because right now it feels like they're kind of all over the place. And even though you have an existing relationship with somebody, you should still do a buyer consultation. Sometimes it's more important to do one, because you want to get them into the mode of seeing you as their agent and not just their friend or former coworker or whatever relationship you have. So
Right.
that consultation can be really valuable. And probably the focus of it will be, okay, what's our timeline? What's our budget? What are you looking for? When would you want to move? Let's all get on the same page about, if you want to move on this date, we've got to find a place by this date. And how are we all going to get there together? Here's our goal as a team, and this is what we're looking for. And then everybody walks out of that meeting on the same page.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a lot to coordinate. And they sent me like
Yeah.
5 homes that they're interested in, which I intend on going in, researching, even contacting that listing agent, getting a little bit more information. And maybe I can be like, you know what? This one, I don't think it's going to meet your needs because of this, this, and this. So,
Mhm.
Helping guide that.
Yeah. And you can say, like, anything you send me, I'm going to play devil's advocate a little bit, because
Right.
I'm going to check the boring stuff. You look at the photos and the location and, the things that that people are most likely to look at on a listing online, and then say, I'm going to look at the details and make sure that we're hitting those most important things to you. Like if AC is a must have, that one gets overlooked all the time. And then you end up in a house and they're like, wait, so it's radiant heat? And you're like, oh crap, why are we here? So
Yeah.
making sure that you're on the same page about what you're looking for, and maybe every once in a while reiterating that. So are we still looking for this, or have we changed our location? Based on our showings yesterday, here's a recap. Looks like, air conditioning isn't a must have. So when I send you places I think are interesting, or you send me places, if they don't have air conditioning, we may still go look at them. Is that correct? So sometimes you just have to regroup, because people's idea of what they're looking for changes over time. It probably
Right. And
did,
that's
for
what
anybody
happened.
who's, yeah.
They've been looking and they haven't really found anything that fits. And so now it's changing. And so now it's like, okay, we need a group here. So we're not
Yep.
wasting a lot of time.
Yeah, I would just schedule a time and say, hey, rather than spend an hour going out on a showing plus, right, with travel, let's
Yeah.
regroup. Let's have a Zoom call. Let's all get on the same page. When is everybody free this week, or as many people as possible? And this is what we're going to talk about. Short, concise. This is going to be our meeting. This is going to be our goal. We're going to walk away knowing what we're looking for, where we're looking for it, what our price maximum is, and when we need to get an accepted offer by to hit your target date. And then make it happen. And sometimes that has to happen with, single buyers or sellers, or a couple. It's sometimes you get off track, especially with buyers, especially in low inventory market, right? Is anybody finding they're just having to kind of change what they're looking for because of the inventory? And
Yeah,
that
I
can be
think
really
Charlie said that
frustrating.
this morning. They've
Yeah.
changed their needs.
Mm-hmm. Yep. So there are times when, you should absolutely do a buyer consultation, but there are times when you may need to do a regroup, because you're getting to that point. If you're feeling frustrated, they're probably feeling even more frustrated. So those check-ins can help you avoid that, because you could kind of, take care of a small little regroup on a weekly basis. But if you feel like you're getting to the point where, like, geez, I've seen them in person on showings, I'm counting this as my check-in, but we are like really bumping heads on this. It's just nothing's flowing. We don't feel like we're on the same team. That may be the time to say, you know what? In the interest of everyone's time, let's have a regroup meeting, and then we'll move forward from there, and try to do it as soon as possible.
Yeah, thank you.
Sure. Thanks for sharing.
Mm-hmm.
Anybody else have an example of being accountable to your clients, or something that didn't work out? Perhaps you're in a transaction where it felt like the co-broke wasn't accountable to their client.
I feel like I'm kind of piggybacking off of Beth's. I have I have a buyer that doesn't really know what they want, and I've showed 11 condos now, 7 of those last night. Hence why I can't talk, I swear. But I think that I personally probably overwhelmed my client with showing her 7 properties last night. And now I think she's confused, doesn't know what she wants. I still need to regroup with her today, obviously, but I think I'm worried I'm not going to be able to land the plane once I do talk to her, because she might go one route of wanting to see even more, like liking this idea, like, well, we just saw 11, let's see more, or just like feeling really nervous about stuff. And I do believe that there were like 3 of these condos that like fit her perfectly, and I just don't know how to guide that, I guess.
That's a good one. So in general, when I do a buyer consultation, I usually try to tell people, unless they're like coming in from out of town or they have a crazy work schedule and we have to jam a lot in, I usually tell them 4, maybe 5 maximum, or they all start to blend together. It's just too much. For people who don't look at homes all the time, that can be super overwhelming. Or it's just really fun, and then they're totally non-committal and they're not going to write an offer on anything. They just want to see houses, like they live in HGTV land. Either way, it doesn't service anybody. I would say what I would probably do in your position would be reach out to her right away after this and say, maybe in a text message, like, hey, I just wanted to check in about what we saw yesterday. I know it was a lot. I have some helpful thoughts. When are you free to chat today? And try to set aside a time of like 15, 20 minutes and say, like, I know this was a lot. I think there are 3 that seem to fit your needs best, but how are you feeling? Let's eliminate half of what we saw last night. What would you eliminate? Okay, now what would you keep? Why would you keep these? Can you rank them? What are your top 3? And then you can kind of chime in with your thoughts on what you thought the top 3 were, but give her a chance to kind of work through the process of it, because you're also training her that if these are not the ones, the next time you go out on showings, she should refer back to this thought process again. And you can say, like, this is a really helpful way that other people I've worked with, or when I was looking for a home, I found this to be a helpful way to, really hone in on what was important and to eliminate what wasn't. And given the speed of the market right now, it's really important that we're able to do that efficiently, and ideally when we're looking at those properties. So here's, this is a toolkit I'm going to help you with. Let's talk about, how does this place rank out of 100? If it's 85% or better, it's worth considering an offer. 100% doesn't exist, because what is 100% changes on the property, right? Like, I bought a condo with no balcony and no indoor parking spot, and those were non-negotiables for me. But then I got in here and we had heated concrete floors, and I was like, wow, that balcony is not so important. So my 100% is totally different now. So 85% or better, kind of helping show that you're a resource to help sort through this crazy process, not just accepted offer to closing, but sorting through what's out there and available, I think is worth taking the time to do, and will help build that trust and relationship, set you as an expert, and also will save you some time so that you're not running around showing many properties with no offers or no feedback, or you feel like you're not getting any closer to what you're looking for. So I think that's a great check-in, post showing day, to check back and say, hey, let's regroup about how this went. And I try to do that at the end of a showing tour, but sometimes they're just overwhelmed and need a minute. And I'll say, let's check in tomorrow. I'm going to give you a little time to think about these places. If you have questions, follow up with me today. Otherwise, why don't we set a time to talk tomorrow and kind of sort through what we saw? Or, hey, there's some places that I think are going to go quickly. We should probably have a talk about this today. So if you guys want to talk about it in the car on the way home and then call me, why don't we do that? In the interest of giving you an opportunity to make an offer, we'll need to do this, have some idea if there's anything you want to write an offer on pretty quickly so you don't miss out.
Yeah, I feel that I kind of did some of that last night.
Okay.
And we had, a good half an hour. Somehow we were ahead of schedule. I don't know how that happened. And we had like a half an hour to like sit down on the picnic tables on Broadway, and really just sit and talk about it. And I really thought it was going to be easy to be like, okay, we've seen 6 of these properties now. So I know we can get rid of this one because there were like no windows. It was dark, low ceilings, and the painting was horrible. Like there was nothing. Like, she's like, well, I don't know. I feel like it could be in the runnings. Like I could repaint it, and maybe the light was just not coming in the right way at the time we saw it. And I was like, oh my God, like there's like 3 other ones that you're at, like what you were saying, Amanda, you're 85%. There's 3 other ones that we already saw it, and you're talking about this 10% one that clearly just should be knocked out. So like I was trying to do that even last night, and so I'm just worried about the pushback I might get this afternoon. I did text her, and
is the price point different with these? Or are
what
they
did
all
you
pretty
say?
similar?
Sorry.
Is the price different with these, or are they all pretty similar?
They're all pretty similar, within like 50 grand.
Okay, because
Is
that
pretty
could be one
similar? I guess
approach.
I don't know.
It's a pretty broad span.
Okay.
I'd say, within 10,000, 20,000, that's one thing. 50 is pretty, depending on the price point, obviously.
Yeah, I would say,
but
that makes sense. I would say they're all between like 220 and like 280.
that makes a big difference. The jump from 220 to 250 is usually pretty significant, and from 250 to close to 300, you can see a difference in quality, size, desirable building, parking situation, that kind of stuff. So it makes a big difference. I think helping her understand the perspective of like the value of her time, if you want to find a diamond in the rough, awesome. What is it worth to you? Is this, saving this much money on the purchase price, which translates to, if it's $5,000 on a purchase price, you're talking about $25 a month. So if it's $10,000 on a purchase price, you're talking about $50 a month on a 30-year fixed loan. So is it worth it to her to save $50 a month to have to pay for XYZ upfront? Is it worth $25 a month to have less of a view? To kind of put it into that perspective, it may be that she's trying to get a bargain and is willing to put up with stuff for a price difference. But if you put it into a different light, that might change her view on it. And also just like, well, do you want a project? Do you have the time to do these things? Do you have the resources to do these things out of pocket once you buy it? Might be some helpful insight too.
Yeah, I think I probably messed up with showing her like too wide of, price ranges. But like this one that was dark, low ceilings, whatever, it was kind of at the top of what we were seeing. It was that 280. And she was like, well, I could paint it. And I'm like, this is at the very top. And you're saying you're still going to put a ton of money into it to make it your 85%,
Was what she liked about it stuff that can't be changed? That's another way that I help people sort through what they've seen is, okay, let's talk about what you can change and what cannot be changed. So
it was just
layout really, and floor and view versus paint and bathroom finishes.
Right. I think that it just really took me off guard because this one, it was such a no, top of the price range, a lot she wanted to change. And when we were there was nothing even really that she was pointing out that she really liked. And she was saying negative things about it. So when we were sitting down, I was like, okay, so we can take this one out. And she's like, well, and I'm like, oh, holy hell. So I don't know.
It may
just a learning experience for me.
It is. Well, and it may just take saying, would you write an offer on this today? If not, it goes to the bottom of the list. Would you write an offer on this today? Okay. Do you discount price like this one? Well, this is not the market for that. This is priced appropriately. Do you would you pay over asking price for this? Kind of pushing her into the reality of an offer to see how she reacts rather than try this on. Oh, I could do this. Yeah. I could hem this. It'll be fine. Put her in the position of this is a purchasing situation. If you wrote an offer on this, would you feel good about it? Can you picture yourself living here and only living here? We're not, you don't get to live in a different condo every week. Like, this is your place.
Yeah.
I like those questions. I have a buyer that's similar to the situation that you're talking about. So, Amanda, I really liked what you said. Do you imagine writing an offer or living here? Interesting. Thank you.
Sometimes you have to say that. You're welcome. Sometimes people just really like window shopping, and you've got to be a little bit stronger handed, but say, I'm going to ask you these questions that are going to be very direct, and it's to help you figure out what the best decision is for you. Okay. So would you write an offer on this today? Are you willing to make an offer 10,000 over asking? Would it be worth it to you at that price? For perspective, 10,000 over asking, you've got a 30-year fixed rate loan. You're probably talking about $50 a month. How does that translate for you? Is it worth it to you for that price? Really the thing I come across most often is if people are seeing a house or a condo that's just cute as heck. You've seen them, right? They're staged beautifully, fresh paint, but you start thinking about, like, this is across the street from an apartment building that has like a bunch of garbage in the front, and it's on the alley, and it has extra sidewalk to shovel. There's things you can't change about this that aren't attractive, but you're totally in love with the new paint and the carpet that's cheap, but it looks nice right now, right? And so I give them permission to say, I appreciate this property. I think it's really cute, but I can't picture this working for me.
Mm-hmm.
And just give them that freedom to say, like, you can think this is a cute, great house, but it doesn't necessarily mean it's a great fit for you. You can appreciate what this condo could be, but is this a best fit for you and your life right now? Are you going to have the time to paint it and change the kitchen and do all these things? Or is it worth it to you to spend, $75 more a month and get this place that's totally move-in ready in a more desirable location that better fits your needs? And kind of push them a little further to make those more definite decisions rather than just appreciating a place. And sometimes I'll go to the extent of saying, like, we're going to pull a Marie Kondo right now, and we're all going to say, thank you, house. You are adorable. You are not for us. We move on. So just giving people permission to say, like, I can appreciate this, or I can picture this being cool, but I need to be practical. This is an adult decision. This is a big investment. And the intention of our working together is to get you to the point of an accepted offer and a purchase. So if this does not work for that situation, we can appreciate it, but we move on to what's actually going to work.
This kind of ties into a thought I was having.
Yeah.
I was asked to show a couple houses for somebody, and it was usually I show one person and you have a one-on-one conversation, but this was a couple, and they kind of buzzed through the house, seeing what they wanted to see. They asked me a question. I was kind of hung up, and I tried to find the answer, trying to find the RECR online, which was kind of a mistake. And by the time I knew it, they were already out of the house. And I'm like, well, don't you want to see the bedrooms? And they're like, no, we already saw the bedrooms. So I really learned that, you have to kind of, I'm used to looking at the house, but I realized that you have to just stay with the client all the time. Mm-hmm. And, going back to the last example, I think it would be helpful if you stick with the client and then ask them on site what they think of it before it gets away from them. But it was kind of a eye-opener that you shouldn't just, you have to go at their pace, not your pace, which I wasn't used to.
That's a good point. And I think, whether you're showing a property for somebody else, which, side note, I know there's a lot of agents looking for showing help right now. If you're looking to do that, let me know. But I think even if you're showing for someone else, or you are showing your own clients, making sure you're establishing yourself at the beginning of that showing, that first showing, to say, like, hey, I'm so-and-so. So this is how I do showings. So we're going to look around the outside together. We're going to go in the house. We're probably going to have to put on shoe covers. Do you have your masks? Yada, yada. FYI, I did my research ahead of time, and here's some things to note about this house. I looked at the condition report online already, and it has a note about the basement seepage. So I think we should look at that. I looked at the agent description and it said they're going to be replacing the roof before closing. So let's pay attention to that as well. Okay, so this one is this price, and it's new to the market, so it's probably going to get an offer right away. So keep that in mind as we look through. Okay, ready? Let's go together. Then you've set yourself up as the resource and the expert. You've done your research ahead of time, so you're ready. And then if they do go at a fast pace, you've done everything you need to get them what they need to know, and you can just be there to kind of follow and observe. It's a delicate balance, but showings are so much about paying attention to the person who's looking and not as much about the house. And it's easy to get caught up in a really cool house and get excited about things when you're not buying the house. Stop it. You're there for them. So pay attention to how they're responding. Pay attention to their questions. How they responded to the last house. Let's help them sort through, okay, this place has that eat-in kitchen you were hoping for. And the last place we looked at that was $5,000 less, which is really like 25 bucks a month, didn't have that feature. So that's kind of nice, right? Like just helping them sort through as you go, being near them while they're doing that can help. And if they're fast lookers and they know what they like and don't like, then, you get through the house together. And then before you're done, just say like, okay, top 3 things you loved, top 3 things you didn't love. Cool. And if you're like, is this a house you're considering and you just flew through it and didn't get a chance to look at the basement or check the roof, then say, you know what, if you're really thinking about an offer, there's a few things that I think are really important for us to look at before we go. Let's go check the roof, the foundation walls, and the age on the water heater. Okay, cool. We'll go do those things real quick. So kind of responding to how they operate. They're quick. They want to check things off the list. And you can get that pretty quick. Like you said, Alex, you could tell right away they were speedy people. So just being prepared for them, knowing the property, having that stuff at your fingertips. Print out the page. That's easy. Then it's all right there. Give them a copy. So what's included in here? It's on your sheet under inclusions. Oh, okay, cool. Then you're not like futzing around in your phone while they're running through the house. That's a good example. Thank you for sharing. All right, friends, we are past or just at the end of time. Thank you all for coming. I really appreciate you sharing. I like this format where it's more interactive. So I'm trying to do more of that where I can kind of give you some info on the front end, and then we're sharing and interacting, asking questions. Again, this is a safe space for you to share and help each other. If you've got something to talk about, there's a really good chance that somebody else does too. And we all have something to learn from everyone's experiences, myself included. Real estate's an adventure. There's always something different going on. So always new things to learn, which is great. And I'm just gonna check the chat one more time. Setting up showing time for a listing, that's through MLS, you can do that. And there's some more details in there. We can talk about it another time. When an inspection fails. Okay, Tamika, we can talk about that offline as well. So thank you all for coming and participating. I hope you got something out of it. And we'll see you again next Tuesday at 10:30. Also, if you did not hear, Brad is doing a buyer consultation on command today in Tech Tuesday. I believe that's at noon. So if you haven't started that, or you're feeling overwhelmed about that part of your checklist of top 5, go watch that, or make a note to go back and watch it if you can't today. I think that'll be really insightful too. So reminder, text me to set up accountability call, 15 to 20 minutes. We talk about where you are with your progress. Highly recommend, can help you get on track, talk to people who have done it, and set up that time through the helpline to go over an offer to purchase if you have not. And if you've done that, then move on to listing contract, buyer consultation. Get these things solidly handled before you're doing that with a client, okay? Awesome. Have an awesome week.
Amanda,
You
I have
guys are
one
all
quick question.
great. Yeah.
In the team meeting, they were talking about continuing education. If I just got my license a couple months ago, do I still need to take that?
I believe you do.
Okay.
I would double check with either Stephanie Connard or Kimmy. Kimmy's on vacation right now.
Okay.
But if you have Stephanie Connard, you can give her your, this is when I started date.
Okay.
But general rule of thumb, even if you're new this year, you still have to do continuing ed.
Okay.
So I highly recommend the online version. It's super easy. These tests are pretty straightforward, and you can just run the video on your computer.
Okay.
I used to do it with another agent just so we could like bounce things off of each other. But if you do that, do it at a safe distance. Cool. Good question.
Jackie,
All right,
maybe
everybody.
we can do it together.
Yes.
'Cause
Yeah.
I have to do it too, apparently. So
Yep. We all do. We all do. Just get it done before December. I think it's 13th or 15th. So put it on
Okay,
your
cool.
to-do list.
yeah.
All right. Cool. Thanks for coming. I'll see you guys next week. Don't forget to text me to set up accountability.
Thank you.
Thank you.
you.
Bye-bye.